subject, which is the abstract expressionists, also known as the action painters, or the New York school. Mostly it was developed in New York after World War II, or 1945, though a lot of the painters were working in New York before that time. And the center of the art world, as we were talking before about Impressionism and Cubism and then Surrealism, was all in France. Cities got heavily bombarded during the war, and it caused a lot of the artists to come to America. But there were already a lot of artists who were over here looking to escape, you know, the ravages of World War I, never mind World War II, and looking for a better life and everything. So it wasn't all imported talent, but the influence from those other artists came, particularly the Surrealists. And the Surrealists were popular in New York amongst the wealthy people who were supporting them, because the most popular amongst the general people and a lot of the public commissions were the social realists, who were doing murals for post offices and stuff like that during World War II. And they were influenced by the Mexican mural painters. But the intellectuals were interested in the ideas of the Surrealists, who were interested in psychology and dreams, and how people didn't really have to be premeditated in their actions. They could act out directly. And when they were thinking about why paint or what to do as a painting, the abstract expressionists came to the idea it's not, you know, what you paint, it's that you're painting. You know, just the act of painting itself is important. So Jackson Pollock became sort of the famous guy for doing these action paintings, which is pretty much just like moving around like this. And then, but he was inspired by the Surrealist automatic writing, where you didn't really edit yourself for the automatic painting, or even the more worked out paintings of Dali were based on dreams that he didn't bother to censor himself, even if they were violent or sexual or whatever. And some of the artists, including Jackson Pollock, got into the idea of, I don't even have to touch the canvas, I'm just going to throw the paint down, and he ended up putting these big canvases on the ground and dipping brushes into the paint and then just swirling around, and it's almost like a meditation, where you'll see monks do a certain repeated action or something as kind of meditation. You know, even the Japanese monks would like rake these stones and stuff in the gardens. They were influenced by all this stuff, though the styles, even though they were called the action painters and the abstract expressionists, were vastly different. Some of the other people were like Mark Rothko, who did large, very somber, very soft paintings of large rectangles and things like that. And then one of my favorites is Willem de Kooning, who wasn't originally from America, but he was from Holland, and came over in the 1920s. And his work looks like this, but he was often doing figurative work, so he even once took a photograph of Marilyn Monroe, her face. She was very popular in like 1950, and the actress. We put it on a canvas, and then he did this whole like figure painting, but very action-like and stealth. The only thing, you know, you could see left over was just like the lips, you know. And what this all was concurrent with was after the war in America, it was also during the 50s, where there was a big, what they call the Red Scare about communism. And the communists and the Russians were big in this social realist. They didn't trust the abstract expressionists. They didn't trust free ideas of artists in general. So they were doing their social realist paintings of Stalin, you know, saving the world and stuff like that. And so the American people started to get behind the abstract expressionists just because they weren't like that. And their art was sort of apolitical. You could sort of attach any meaning you wanted to this. And at a time when they had like the blacklisting in the Hollywood movies, because they were telling people somebody was a communist, and so all of a sudden he couldn't get any work as an actor or director, to have work like this, which was very non-political. It didn't have pictures of soldiers marching or starving workers and stuff like this. So it's hard to tell in retrospect how much this really influenced people, but the American people got behind these artists and they started buying them, and they started not going to Europe to find the artists. Picasso was getting old, Matisse was getting old, and they were staying at home and finding their own artists. And then in the mid-50s, the younger artists who came next started working, and they were saying this macho hero kind of one-man artwork was okay, they'd achieved something, but what's next? We're missing some imagery here, and they wanted to be able to pull in some imagery, so they started picking up things from popular imagery, and that's where we get the term pop art, and that's like what happened afterwards. They started to introduce symbols and signs, and people like Rauschenberg, who just died this week, respected the abstract expressionists, and he was coming from that area, but he started to saying, I could make paintings or art out of anything, and he started making paintings that were a combination sculptures and paintings just out of found trash. And then people started incorporating more and more imagery until you get into Andy Warhol with the pop artist, and it's all about somebody else's image that's appropriated, and it's just marketing. It's a statement about that. We can get into more of that later. Anyway, that's just a brief outline of the action painters, the abstract expressionists of the New York School, and that's what happened to bring painting from Europe to America. It stayed here. Pretty much the supremacy of the art world stayed in America ever since